Look at the numbers. This is not rocket science. Joining me right now is Tommy Binion from the Heritage Foundation, Dan Mitchell from the Cato Institute, and Trump advisor Steve Cortes. All right, it may not be rocket science, guys, but look, the reality is, Dan, he made a promise out there on the campaign trail, and he says he's a man of his word. He said he wasn't going to go touch these entitlements, that people's Social Security was safe. Is that what he has to follow through on at this point? The budget be damned?
Well, what he said is that he wasn't going to cut entitlements. I'm hoping that means that he can at least slow down the rate of growth. The way I look at what we think we know of the Trump budget, it's going to be good, bad, good, and question mark. Good, less discretionary domestic spending. Bad, not touching entitlements. Good, tax cuts. And then what's he going to do? Is he going to do anything on the long-run growth? That's the problem.
I get to tell you, I am impressed. I don't know if the viewer can hear all the sirens going on behind us, but we all certainly can. And Dan, you made it all the way through, just despite the noise. Anyway, you're making some good points here. Tommy, when you think about it, what's the reality when it comes to these entitlements and knowing that it makes up basically half of your overall budget? You know, do they need to be fair game?
The reality is, if you want to preserve the entitlements and if you want to balance the budget, they need to be fair game. But I don't think that Trump leaving entitlement reforms out of this first budget of his necessarily takes entitlement reform off the table. I think congressional Republicans, certainly conservatives, are planning to take a major stab at entitlement reforms when they have to tackle the debt ceiling this summer.
Here's the thing. I mean, why not, you know, to some 18-year-old kid, you have an 18-year-old, and she's going off to college. When she gets out of college, why not tell her now, hey, look, there's going to be no Social Security for you. You're going to have to come up with your own alternative plan for retirement. I mean, couldn't you actually start to make some significant inroads by dealing with a younger generation of people?
And Trish, I think to your point, by the way, if you talk to millennials, and I don't have data on this, but just anecdotally talk to them, I think they already assume that. They really do. So I don't think it's politically unfeasible. Now, I would say in terms of entitlement reform for people who are either currently receiving benefits or about to, totally politically unfeasible.
Forget it. No,
it's a non-starter. And you know, Dan, I'm very sympathetic. I love the Cato Foundation.
They're dependent on that money.
Yeah,
they're dependent on that money, and they elected him because he promised he would keep those checks coming.
Right. And so I think that is not politically feasible in any sense. I think Trump correctly and aptly recognized that early on. Here's, I think, the answer. What you just mentioned, which is let's start dealing with younger people. And let's be very honest and realistic about where the math goes going forward. But here's the second thing. The math gets so much better if we grow. Because we haven't grown and because the average worker's paycheck has not grown in this century. It's 2017, Trish. The average worker's paycheck hasn't grown yet in this century. That's one of the main reasons, if not the main reason, that Donald Trump was elected. If we get to where we belong on the growth curve through deregulation, through tax reform, we are through sensible trade deals.
You're going to have a much prettier picture to look at.
The math gets so much easier.
The other thing that, you know, nobody wants to talk about this ever since Bush tried it and it failed is the privatization of Social Security. Why not empower people to have the ability to control those accounts themselves? I mean, Chile has done this very, very successfully with privatized accounts there. Dan, this should be music to your ears, right? Isn't that some kind of system that puts the power in the hands of the individual the way we need to go when we think about these young 18-year-old kids?
It is music to my ears. I wrote my dissertation on Australia's privatized system, which I think is even better than the great system in Chile. But I actually think there could be a coming together of the Paul Ryan people and the Trump people, because Paul Ryan's budgets the last 6 years, they haven't touched Social Security. Now, they have addressed Medicare, but only for people 55 and younger. So I think Trump can be perfectly upfront about, I made this promise, we're not going to affect current seniors and, as noted, those near retirement. But let's begin to fix these programs for the long run. Now, ultimately, I would love to have Social Security in the mix as well, but that hasn't been in these House budgets.
I think that's so important, too. Context is important here. In this city of Washington, D.C., all right, and I'm just a visitor here, in Washington, D.C., slowing growth is considered a drastic cut in this city. So even the fact that Donald Trump, that President Trump, is talking about slowing growth, I think, is monumental. So I look forward to hearing what he has to say tonight. If we grow the economy, not Washington, if we grow the economy the way we're supposed to, then I believe we can make the math, the actuarial math, work for our entitlements.
Well, the whole key in the long run, make sure government grows slower than the private sector.
Right.
Look, growth solves a whole lot of problems.
Sure does.
That's for sure. Good to see all you guys. Thank you so much for
you.
being here. All right, we got a lot to talk about coming up. Of course, tonight is a very, very big night. And meanwhile, let's check in on